Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Big Three, the podcast where we unpack the biggest trends, insights, and stories shaping influencer marketing and the creator economy. I'm your host, Ceci Carloni, and today we have a very special episode. For the first time ever, we're welcoming a guest to The Big Three. Joining us today is Alex Dahan, founder and CEO of Open Influence. Alex has been leading the space for more than a decade now, helping major brands like AT&T, Uber, Moderna, Mercedes-Benz, Macy, Chase, Google, and Amazon connect with audiences through authentic creator storytelling. And he's also a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree and a recognized voice on how AI and data are transforming the future of marketing. Alex, welcome to the Big Three. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited. This is our very first episode with a guest, so I'm very, very excited. We have a great conversation prepared for you today. So we'll go through, your journey, first of all, what inspired you to start your company. We'll focus on how the industry has evolved, the past, present, and future. So are you ready to kick things off?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Let's do it. Okay, Alex, for listeners who may not know your story yet, can you give us a quick snapshot of how Open Influence started back in 2013? I mean, what was the inspiration? What gap in the market you saw back then that made you want to build something new?
Yeah, absolutely. So things really kicked off back in the mobile revolution. This is when, people were making the transition from Blackberries to iPhones. It was a really exciting time. Social media was, just starting to emerge. People had Facebook accounts. Instagram was, slowly getting adoption. This was pre, Facebook acquisition. And, I came to the realization that I needed to solve a problem that every brand faces when they create a product. And that is you create a product and you need to get that product out to your customer. How do you do that? At the time, I had several companies throughout high school and I had a clothing line that was getting a lot of traction manually, selling jeans and t-shirts through word of mouth marketing at the time.
So it's
But
safe to say that you've always been an entrepreneur.
absolutely. Ever since I can remember, I mean, this goes back to second grade, lemonade stand
Love
selling,
that.
and everything in between. So always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And this is when, I really started to see traction in my first business and it was growing organically, but needed to really take it to the next level. And online is the best way to do that and reach a larger audience. So not a lot of people were on Instagram at the time. It was a lot of quotes and scenic backgrounds. There weren't a lot of personalities yet. So identified a few people on the old popular page, which would filter the most popular pieces of content at the time, reached out to them and gave them some free product. They started promoting it on their page and instantly sold out all of the product that I had.
Wow.
Then I realized, wow, this is extremely powerful. Put a pause on the clothing line and said, you know what? I think it's time to start an agency. I brought on my best friend and partner, Joey Shawaki, who runs operations for us today. And we said, you know what? Let's go to business together. Let's create an advertising company. If it's working for us, it could work for everyone else.
Yeah. Alex, an entrepreneur and a visionary as well, because I mean, back then the term influencer marketing wasn't even mainstream. So tell us a bit more about what those early days looked like. I mean, I don't know, convincing brands that creators could drive real businesses with that, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Influencer marketing, creator marketing was not a term yet. We called them promoters or trendsetters. We eventually started to use the term influencer because we thought it was more effective because ultimately these are what, these creators are doing. They're influencing their audience to eventually make a purchasing decision. So we started, adopting that term very early on. And in the early days, it was difficult. Brands were not ready for influencer
Yeah.
marketing. We were, 19, 20-year-old kids, trying to book meetings with some of the largest brands and convincing them that social media is the future. Attention is shifting from TV and other media channels over into mobile and social. And these creators could be a vehicle of trust to communicate your branded messaging to your target
Yeah.
audience.
Alex, I was thinking, I paused there for a minute because I was thinking about what were some of the questions that brands had for you back then. Do you remember what was, or even like the main misconceptions or things that they were curious about?
Yeah, a lot of it was how do we find the right creator? At a surface level, they would start looking at these newly emerging creators, right? Because there wasn't a lot of them on the platform at the time, and say, how many of their followers really hit our target demographic, especially in the early days when we were working with more niche brands. And it was more difficult to find influencers whose followers really match their target demographic. And that was always a question. And also, how effective are creators in driving actual purchases? That was a big question on their mind. They understood that attention was shifting, that people were engaging in creator content, but the effectiveness was still unproven.
Okay. I have a couple of follow-up questions on that, but I leave them for further in the conversation where we focus more maybe on the present. But Alex, after all this years in the industry, what from your perspective, what would you say has been the single biggest change you've seen in how brands and creators work together? And what do you think has basically stayed the same at its core?
Yeah. So the biggest change definitely is data and how data plays a role in decision making. So this is, finding the right creators, coordinating campaigns at scale, and then post campaign analytics. So really measuring the results of how effective a campaign is. Again, in the early days, it was very surface level brands looking at a creator saying, hey, their content, their aesthetic matches our brand, they would be great. And this is when we as a company really focused on developing tools to identify the right creators and absorb as much data on those creators as possible to assure that the brand is, making the right selections and their campaigns are extremely effective. I would say what has changed, stayed the same, is content is king. Content is always king regardless on how amazing data looks on paper, good content is what's really going to move the needle and drive purchases. And you need to create a very powerful message to communicate that to an audience for them to really engage with any creator's content.
Alex, you said creator is king. Would you agree that if that's still the case, community has to be queen?
Absolutely. Yes. I think, it goes hand in hand, right? I think, without powerful content, you're unable to build an amazing community. And community is kind of the feedback loop to that initial content. So
Exactly.
that's what allows creators to really scale, broaden their message, and create a long lasting community that could grow with them throughout their entire influencer life cycle.
Absolutely. Alex, going back to all the changes that we were discussing across all the years, were there any moments where you thought, okay, finally the industry is maturing? Or maybe on the flip side, any moments that made you realize how much further we still need to go?
Yeah. So we saw explosive growth and adoption of creator marketing really in 2017. There was always a lot of interest very early on, but really they were for the pioneering brands. And some of them were really big brand names like Disney, who's been a longtime client of ours for 10 plus years. They were one of the first to take a leap into creator marketing, but most were very hesitant, wanted to test things out at a smaller budget. What we saw in 2017, I think, was recognition of the power of creators. This is when some of the, largest creators in the world, started emerging, growing their following and building their own brands very early on. And this was also what we saw is explosive growth in D2C brands. So these are brands that are social first, building,
Yeah.
and a lot of the legacy brands saw the effectiveness of that and really, decided to double down. And as far as, when I saw the space really seeing more upside is actually just a couple of years ago. I realized that we're still at the very beginning stages of this.
Mhm.
It's still very early, and even though we've seen incredible growth throughout the years, there is still so much upside,
A lot.
for us to take advantage of. And bigger brands are shifting budget out of traditional marketing channels and into creator. So it's very exciting to see.
Yeah, yeah. I think that let me ask you this. Do you agree that even up until a couple of years ago, like influencer marketing was considered like a small piece of the marketing mix and the budget, but now it's the budget? I don't know
Yeah.
if I framed that correctly, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We saw this really in our RFPs that we were receiving. So in the earlier days, the RFPs were more tailored to standard media buys. They were not customized for creator marketing. Now they're 100% customized for creator marketing. And talking to media buyers, we see that creator marketing really is an established budget pillar for them where they're starting to allocate more and more resources and actually shifting resources from other channels and doubling down in creator marketing, which is really encouraging to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alex, we just shifted the conversation to the present. So let's talk about what's actually working right now. From your perspective, from where you stand, what's working really well in influencer marketing right now, and what's starting to feel outdated or even overhyped, whether that's the kind of formats, the kind of content, type of partnerships.
Yeah, what's working really well is highly coordinated campaigns at scale,
Okay.
and leveraging years of experience to execute on these campaigns. I think execution is something that is a constant, and has been, especially as we started scaling, you know, larger and larger brands are spending more and more money. Things get more complex with scale
Yeah.
and make sure that quality, because these brands, a lot of them, they focus on quality is the number one indicator that they look for. And typically quality diminishes with scale. So making sure that we're to maintain quality, we're able to maintain consistency and coordinate campaigns at scale is really our bread and butter. And we see, more and more brands really looking for creator partners that can master the execution piece of these complex, creative marketing campaigns. What I've seen to be a little bit more outdated are a lot of the CRM licensed self-served models. So these are companies that, have built self-serve influencer marketing software and license it out to companies to try to do influencer marketing in-house. I feel like a lot of that tech has been commoditized. We were super early to develop internal tools that helps us manage our campaigns more effectively, but I believe when the model has shifted to, hey, anyone could use these tools to number one, search for the right influencers, message influencers, negotiate pricing, commission content, and track results, that it wasn't giving brands the assurance and scalability that they were looking for, and really put a lot of the burden on the brands where they would have to hire, a larger and larger team to
Yeah.
manage. So again, I think, execution is a process that is fine tuned after years and years. And when it comes to a brand's, you know, legacy and image, they want to make sure it's protected.
Absolutely. You talk about execution, Alex, and that's something that I talked about in my previous interview. I think that a great idea, I mean, you can have a strategy and a brilliant idea, but without execution, that's it, right? It's just an amazing idea.
Definitely. And we've
Yeah.
seen that. We've seen that in the
We've
market.
seen that.
Where, yeah, brands, they have an amazing idea, but the execution
The
is
failure. Alex, we mentioned this before. We know that you've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. Again, We mentioned some of them. Tell us, what do you think, what do those top performing partnerships have in common?
Yeah, so I think what a lot of these partnerships have in common is, again, the realization that social is not going away. And the marketing channels that they've been spending on traditionally is very one sided, meaning that a lot of the distribution is coming from the brand's perspective rather than a trusted source. So I think a lot of brands are realizing that the most effective way to communicate a brand's message is through a trusted source where an audience can get socially relevant context on a product.
Yeah.
So rather than just saying a, product with no context with a white background and saying, "Hey, like this is why this product is amazing for you." Now you could see the product integrated into a creator's content and all of a sudden it becomes socially relevant. So I think a lot of these large brands are really starting to understand that and adopt that strategy more and more.
Okay, so that's on the brand side. And when you look at the creator landscape today, what do you think are the most successful creators doing differently? And what should other creators or even brands be doing to truly stand out as the industry evolves?
Yeah. So what creators are doing really well, what I've seen work is they're sticking to their niche. They're finding a niche vertical and they are producing very authentic content
Yeah,
and themselves, right? And building an audience based off of personality, and also some sort of niche interest that resonates with their audience. And this is where, we were talking about community earlier. This is where you're able to really develop a strong community that resonates with that audience, that sees something in that creator that they see in themselves. And it becomes a very effective strategy in building longevity as a creator. And what I've seen over the years is creators leveraging that organic following that they've built through whether it be a hobby, an interest, or just a style and content that they love and start building their own brands. They realize how effective influencer marketing is for other brands. Now they're starting to develop their own.
yeah,
We've seen a lot of massive success stories with creator led brands, grow to hundreds of millions of dollars in sale, billions of dollars in acquisitions. And I think this is a trend that's going to continue.
absolutely. Alex, I want to go back to something that you mentioned before. When you look at the industry today more broadly, you said you think it's still at its infancy.
Yes.
Okay, that's contrary to what a lot of people say. A lot of people say we're entering this consolidation phase where only the best platform agencies and creators will survive. So I guess you don't agree on that one.
Well, I do. I think it's twofold. I do think there is a period of consolidation, but typically with consolidation emerges the winners in the industry. So there's
Absolutely.
typically a you know a bull run that increases after that consolidation period. So I think like most things, most market cycles are they have their ups and downs, and I see that with creator marketing as well. But with every upcycle, more and more interest gets poured into the space. More and more brands adopt creator marketing as a strategy. More creators become more competitive and produce better content, more engaging content with their audience. So I think this has compounding effects, and I think this benefits everyone in the space at the end of the day. And I do think it's early because, there's still brands who are only spending a fraction of their marketing budget
Yeah.
on creator marketing. And I think if the trends continue, that's going to grow significantly over the years.
Alex, why do you think that is? You just said that some brands haven't still like fully adopted influencer marketing. Why do you think that is?
So I think these brands they're really big organizations. And sometimes these larger organizations take a while to turn into the right direction. There's a lot of hierarchies and they're very risk adverse. So they like to spend on things that they know work really well. And that's proven time and time again. And I think what's been happening over the years is they've been peeling off larger and larger pieces of budget to allocate to creator marketing and starting to see the effectiveness. And now I think they are becoming more comfortable with allocating more budget to the space. And I think leadership at these companies are now seeing those results. And now it's come where before it was coming from bottom up, where a lot of the media buyers were testing the waters, seeing the
Yeah.
effectiveness, firsthand. But now that leadership has seen reports, they're moving in that direction. And I think it's a bottom down directive to really shift the budget into this category.
Yeah. Alex, we were talking before about the industry's evolution. Generally speaking, what do you think it will take to stay relevant over the next couple of years?
Yeah, as a brand or creator, both.
Both.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna take.
Even, sorry, and even an agency.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start off with an agency, so I could speak from experience. I believe what's really gonna set agencies apart is one legacy understanding of how the space operates. I think there's a lot of historical value that has been gained over the years as the space evolves, and those values give us insight into how to fine tune our process to deliver the most value to brands and gives us foresight into what's around the corner and where the industry is evolving to. And making sure that, foundation is managed service, is the execution piece, but also being nimble and dynamic enough to deploy new technologies because we're in the midst of technological revolution with AI. And there are a lot of opportunities to automate what we already do best and make processes more efficient, provide more value for our clients, make creators' lives easier by giving them automation tools, create content and really engage with their audience. So that's where I think the space is heading, and where us as an agency could have a slight advantage over our competitors.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I can believe it. Just are mentioning AI now, like almost 30 minutes in the conversation. Obviously, I want to talk about it, and this question is something that excites me. I mean, I want to hear your answer because I tend to ask this question. When you think about a done right in the creator economy today, what does that actually look like? Where do you see AI actually adding value versus where do you think it's just being used as a buzzword or a checkbox?
Yeah. So I think where we're seeing real world value that I think your listeners can relate to is on the creator side. All of these creator tools that help content creators edit content more efficiently. They are able to take long form video clips, cut them down into short form video clips that are easier to publish on short form video platforms. Dubbing, I think, is an incredible tool that allows creators to translate their voice into any language, which casts a wide net and brings in more people who normally wouldn't listen to that content because they don't understand it. Now, be able to interact and engage with the creator and acknowledge that content. So that is a very, very powerful tool. It also helps with the algorithm on these platforms, where if you're able to translate your content, it'll be served to more people that speak that language natively. So I think that's been an incredible tool. And
Yeah.
then on the agency side, there is a lot of really custom AI tools, an agency can leverage to, again, really automate the process, make the process more efficient. And on the brand side as well, I think a lot of them are, starting to integrate AI. Right now, a lot of them are using the off the shelf, AI tools to help with communication. Communication
Yeah.
is a big part of what we all do, and helping to automate that, if we're able to save, 30 minutes or an hour a day in communicating, it adds efficiency, those gains compound, and ultimately, everyone who uses those platforms benefit from it.
Yeah. Alex, I'm curious about how you are using AI at Open Influence. Mainly I know that the main concern people have is that AI will replace creativity. How do you balance that automation with authenticity in your own work?
Yeah, definitely. So I think AI is a tool to assist people in
I like
creativity,
that. Yeah.
especially in creative tasks. Where I think AI will automate is in a lot of the manual busy work that goes along with building an agency. And there's no shortage of that, but a lot of these tools really help with that type of automation. But when it comes to creativity, it's a little bit more of an art and a science. And it requires a lot of, nuance. This is where, these tools can help iterate a creative idea much faster. You could test out the idea without having to, publish it and get real world feedback from it, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I have a very extensive AI roadmap. I won't get into the details yet, but it's very exciting to see these innovations. Yeah, I'm excited to share more of that in the future.
Alex, do you have any prediction of how AI will continue to shape influencer marketing in the next few years? Or even something that concerns you about how AI will continue to intersect with the industry?
Yes. So I think we are really in a paradigm shift in influencer
Okay.
marketing and in social media as a whole. I strongly believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be more AI generated content on social media
Mm.
than organic human produced content. The ease to produce AI content is much easier. It could be mass produced and really scaled. So what I think this does is one, it gives a lot of people who typically don't want to be the face of the creative. So, people who are, let's say, creative artists, but they are not social media personalities. This allows them to be creative and produce highly engaging content, publish it. But on the flip side, what it does is it dilutes the social experience on social platforms. And we've been seeing this for a number of years, right? With algorithms and how they curate content
Yeah.
content. And it's been more about entertainment than social connection. We've seen that. I think
Uh-huh.
AI creators or AI generated content and AI creators are really going to accelerate that. And social media is not going to be as social in the future. But what I do think that does is it shifts brands over to more authentic connections because AI content might be engaging, but it doesn't build a community and there's no social context or relevancy to that AI content. At the end of the day, that's what humans provide. And that's
Exactly.
what I think all of the value is.
Okay, but Alex, then what role do you think agencies like yours will play in the future in that future creator economy?
Yeah, so I think what we're already starting to see is, especially audiences on social media, they are and this is happening very rapidly, but there's a little bit of a burnout on AI generated content and, it's entertaining for a while. It's engaging, it's something new, but at the end of the day, people are craving real human connection. And that's what I think there's going to be a, proliferation of AI generated content that floods social media. People will be hyper engaged for a period of time and then become
And then
desensitized to
go
that.
back to the real stuff.
Yes, and I think even more so than they did in the past, right? Because it's gonna be more rare to find real human, interactions and real human creator that have a more authentic story to tell than something that's synthetically generated.
Yeah. Um, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think about this future and specifically what it means for the younger generations that I mean, I'm a mom of two young, beautiful girls, and they don't have that capacity of saying, this is AI generated. And it's a bit of a challenge for them. So that worries me a bit, I have to admit.
Yeah, I have the same concern. I mean, especially now, I mean, the only thing the only reason why we're able to determine what's real and what's AI generated is the watermark that Sora 2
Yeah,
applies to their AI generated content. Aside from that, it is very hard to distinguish. And I think eventually this is going to be the role and responsibility of the platform to really identify what's real and what's fake.
yeah.
Because it's getting into a territory where the lines are blurred. A couple years ago, it was easy to distinguish. You saw someone with seven fingers and you're like, okay, this is probably AI generated.
Now it's
Today,
getting good.
getting very good. It's trained on social content, so it feels like it was shot organically from an iPhone. Those lines are being blurred, but I do think regulation is going to catch up to the technology, and users will have more insight into how to distinguish the two.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, I want to start wrapping up the conversation, going back to your journey. You shared with us before that you started out as a creator yourself, promoting your own clothing line. Tell us, how has that shaped the way you live today and the empathy you bring to the creator side of the table?
Yeah, so I've seen firsthand how difficult it is to number one, put something you create out into the world. And I think a lot of creators have that initial hesitancy where, whether it is creating a product or creating a piece of content, a lot of the time, especially in the early days, just getting started, people tend to kind of overthink what the response will be when creating a piece of content, for example. They
Yeah.
want everything to be perfect, to be polished before they publish. And what I've seen, especially working with some of the largest creators super early on when they were not big creators and they had very little following, is they refine that over time. It is a skill that requires repetitive action. And with every piece of content that's published, you learn something. So I would say, to fail fast, and
Yeah.
make sure your strides to success are meaningful and you learn from your failures and apply that to, the next great thing that you're going to share with the world.
Yeah. I actually interviewed hundreds and hundreds of creators. And when I asked them about what advice would you give to other creators starting out, that's precisely what they say. Just start out, just post it, get it out there, and then you'll see how you make it better, how you refine. But that is like the biggest, like the first milestone you have to achieve.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Alex, well, you built Open Influence into a global company today. You have offices across multiple continents. Tell us, what's been the hardest leadership lesson you've learned through that growth?
Yeah, I would say the hardest leadership lesson is really understanding number one, when opportunity presents itself and, having the foresight to take advantage of that
Mm.
opportunity. I think, a lot of people, they see an opportunity come in front of them and they feel that, hey, maybe I'm unprepared to take advantage of this opportunity right now. It will come around, when the time is right. And what I've learned is it doesn't always come
It
around.
does.
It does not. If you, let's say, you meet someone or you see someone you really want to meet, and you tell yourself like I'm in this location often, I'll see that person again. That doesn't happen, right? You really need to take action and um and and make sure that you own that opportunity, and that's when you'll start to see real traction. This is something we did super early on, and taking risks, I think, it is a big part of this, and being okay to fail
Yeah.
is a big part of this. I think what trumps everything else really is developing a team that is smarter than you and the person who is hiring that team. So making sure that there is complementary skill sets within the team that you've
Yeah.
built. And this is something that, we've done super early on at Open Influence, making sure that we hire the best people and also giving people the freedom to do what they love. So don't really,
Love that.
refine them into a specific role
Bro.
and yeah, limit their ability to achieve bigger things. We have people at the company that are hungry, they're motivated, and their skill isn't defined in a role. Their skill, can carry across multiple roles. And especially when building a company in the early days, everyone is doing a little bit of everything. And
Yeah,
that's typically, the people that you want to surround yourself with.
absolutely. Love that. Alex, you've been in the industry, what, over 12 years now?
Yeah, long time.
Okay. I'm curious about what still drives you today. I assume it's different from what drove you in those early days.
Yeah, and what drives me is I love what I do. I do it with the best people I could imagine working with. And I think again, we are just scratching the surface and it's still very early days. And that's what really gets me excited because every time I talk about creator marketing, more and more people are intrigued about it. They understand the effectiveness of it, and the landscape is always evolving.
It's an exciting industry to be in.
Absolutely. Very exciting. And yeah, I'm thankful to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I want to wrap up, close us out with a fun question. I know that you're known for having a ton of creative hobbies like surfing, drawing, design, music. Tell us which one keeps you most grounded when you need to reset from the business side.
Yeah. Yeah. I love doing all those things. I think what I love most is design. So
Okay.
really sitting down and designing a new product. I have a saying, for every problem, there's a platform or a business. And what I like to do is really understand a problem and see if there's a platform solution that can be designed to solve that problem. So, I build a lot of apps, a lot of uh, different tools that could really help with automation. It seems like work, but
It does.
uh, I love it. I love it. It's to me, it's really grounding because at the end of it, you go into that process with nothing, and at the end of it, you have something. And going through that journey and having something that actually has real utility is fulfilling. I
Yeah.
love surfing too. Surfing is a lot of fun, but it's not solving any problems.
Alex, and what are you building these days for fun? Are you working on any projects?
There's a handful. A lot of my time really is solving internal problems at the company. So, we have a lot of ways where, we can automate things and make things more efficient. And this requires really customized tools specifically designed to solve those problems. So I spend a lot of my time doing that. I have some other, passion projects that are more AI related outside of the company. But what really gets me excited is being able to build something and then deploying it internally in the company and seeing traction and feedback from my team and that's what gets me excited.
Okay. Alex, it's been a pleasure. I think we had a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your story with us, your insights. And once again, thank you for your time. That's a wrap up for us and for the big three. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back with more headlines and hot takes from the creator economy. Until then, I'm Ceci. Bye, Alex.
Thank you for having me. Bye, Cece.